talking about with regard to Sharia law is all based on the Quran. And here is the Quran. If you're really smart, you don't pronounce it that way. You say Quran, supposedly. And it's very difficult for me to say that. This is composed of surahs, chapters. They're in no chronological order. They're in no subject order. S-U-R-A, surahs. And this describes the 5 basic tenets of Islam. In addition to this, there's a larger book called the Hadiths, which explain how Muslims are to execute everything. How they are to enter a bathroom, how they are to exit a bathroom, how they are to sip from a cup, how they are to eat from a plate. It's a huge cornucopia of how they are to do everything, honoring Muhammad. A friend of mine who is a doctor has studied this, but I find this extremely dry, so I had to actually go to the Complete Infidel's Guide to the Quran, okay? Which is by Robert Spencer, a very knowledgeable guy, and I actually have a couple of these books that, thanks to the Niceville Valparaiso Tea Party guys, they got for me, and I have one of these. I have one about the politically incorrect guide to Islam. I have the politically incorrect guide to the Middle East, and I have one of these, and I will sell them for $12. I paid $5, and I'm going to donate $7 to Act for America for their cause. The 5 tenets of Islam. Does anyone know what those are? Basically, it is a belief that Muhammad was God. You must pray 5 times a day. You must fast for Ramadan annually. You must make a pilgrimage to the Hajj. Anybody know the last one? Andy, can you help us here? All right, this is where we get into Sharia-compliant finance. 2.5% of the money you take in must be dedicated to zakat, Z-A-K-A-T. And that is charity. You must have charity. Many of our investment groups now, AIG, HBTS, Hong Kong Bank, many others are implementing these Sharia-compliant finance investment vehicles, mutual funds, derivatives, etc., etc. They are using Sharia-compliant finance, which the funds can't be invested in alcohol, they can't be invested in pornography, anything Christian, etc., etc. So a portion of the profit that's made has to be dedicated to charity. And what they've been doing is they've been funneling that money into terrorism activities because zakat has 8 different categories. 4 of those categories are dedicated to the sponsorship of terrorism. And we found that out during the Holy Land Foundation case, where 108 convictions were identified and prosecuted. And this was how we found out that the Council on American Islamic Relations, which was an unindicted co-conspirator in that case, was sponsoring Hezbollah, Hamas, and associated with terrorist activities. The Holy Land Foundation was a charity, and they were funneling that money to Hamas. And there are many other charities that have done the same thing. So when Bill Patterson, a former city council member here, introduced to the city council that they do an ordinance to identify how that money in $7 million in Fort Walton Beach was being invested and spent. Was it being invested in any of these Sharia-compliant funds? Asking for transparency and disclosure, we got a glazed deer in the headlight look from the rest of the county, from the rest of the city council, because not only could they not spell the word, they could not pronounce the word, and even though we spoke to them, and I came back the second time and provided them a book report on this particular booklet that was provided to them, which they could not read. They did not read and could not comprehend. Even the Cliff Notes book report was not sufficient to get them to understand that they could be the cameo first city in the United States to take a stand on behalf of our men and women in uniform, not to allow our investments to be funneled surreptitiously to an entity that would then funnel that money into terrorism. And being a large military area that we are, this was something we really could and should have done and set an example. We could have established a prototype, but it was not to be. Some of the other things with Sharia, if you'd like to write these down, that are involved in Sharia law, which has remained unchanged for 1,200 years, and they want it here and they want it through the world. Forced child marriage. This is going on in the UK now. This is going on in the countries where they have large Muslim contingents. In fact, Muhammad married Aisha, his wife, at age 6 and consummated the marriage at age 9. Okay, so that is the rule. At age 9, you can consummate a marriage with your child bride. Genital mutilation. Ali Hersey in the back, a black woman from Somalia, she was genitally mutilated at age 9. They mutilated her labia so that she would have the women will have pain, so that they will not be sexual. This is common practice in the Muslim culture. Honor killings of your children or your wife, the beheading of the wife in New York. Adultery, you will be stoned if you are an adulteress or an adulterer. Wife beating is allowed. Homosexuals and lesbians will be killed. Capital punishment for apostates who leave the faith. Opposite hand and foot. If you are guilty of robbery or you've stolen something, they will take one hand from one side and a foot from another side. You are to wage jihad, 3 types: cultural, financial, and violent. And it is a religious obligation to promote the one world order under Islam. If you slander Islam, it's capital punishment. And that occurred yesterday when the Roman Catholic 42-year-old legislator in Islamabad, Pakistan, was assassinated coming out of his mother's home. He was the second and last Christian legislator in that parliament. Slavery is legal. Lying is allowed. It's called taqiyya. We, the infidels, the dhimmis, are inferior. And if we are allowed to be in their culture, we will be highly taxed and considered a servile lower caste in their culture. Women are not to leave the house without their husbands. They are to be accompanied by a male member of the family. And of course, they are required to practice zakat. There's lots of other information here, but basically what I want to tell you is we either do something about this or we get what we get. What do we do? You know, don't bring up a problem if you can't recommend a solution. If you'll go to actforamerica.org, www.act4america.org, you will see the founder of this organization who lived this nightmare in Lebanon as a Christian when the Muslims took over her country, age 9. She nearly lost her life and lived in a bunker below their burned out house for 9 years, crawling for water and bits of grass to eat. She knows what we have yet to face. And if we don't stop this now and become aware and clone ourselves, develop more ACT chapters, and increase our numbers and our lobbying capabilities, these people are not playing games. Support your national, state, and local leadership that understand this problem. If you're breaking bread with them, help them understand the problem. Talk to your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, your children. Do you have kids that are wondering what to study in college? Have them study Arabic. Have them study Farsi. Have them go to the State Department and help protect this country. Not go to the State Department and promote Sharia law, which some of our State Department believe in Sharia law. Harold Koh, K-O-H. Look it up. Go to chapter meetings. Mine is March 15th on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. in Navarre. That is week after next. There's, on that website, they've started an Act for America TV show. Look at all the shows. Educate yourself. Sign up for the monthly newsletter. They actually send out little bulletins. Read some of the books in the back. Ask your library to get it through an interlibrary loan. Take some of those handouts. There's a textbook action team for Florida where there's a pro-Muslim bias in many of our books. I mean, we have one in Advanced Placement Art History in Navarre High School where they're promoting this thing. Chapter 13, In Praise of Allah. And what was the Christmas homework? To read that chapter. Start at Fort Walton Beach chapter. We have people ready and willing and waiting and begging to have a chapter leader. I will, tutor them along like we did to get the Pensacola chapter up and running. Donate to ACT. In September, they're going to start the Open the Quran effort, where ACT chapters will, have activities. We'll be sharing what's going on in the Quran, the violent verses, etc., etc. They need funding to help with that. We're going to be manning a booth in Niceville for the tax day, April 15th, up there at the City Hall, the Niceville Valparaiso Tea Party, and I'm going to be there with a booth. If somebody wants to help me with that, that would be great. There is also a Stop Sharia tutorial on the Act for America page. There's a woman in a burqa. All you see are her eyes. Personally, I don't want to wear a burqa. Is there anyone in here that would like to wear one? Yeah, not a fun thing. It's pretty hot in Florida, too. And finally, don't forget to tune in tomorrow to 94.5 FM. And I wanted to pass around a list to see if anybody wanted to get on, but I can't find it now. Here it is. Anybody wanted to get on my Act for America list so that I can send you some things that come across my desk, because there are Muslim prayer rugs showing up on the United States-Mexico border. 43 foreign countries, including terror-sponsoring countries, over 5,300 between 2001 and 2007, other than Mexicans. These are people coming across that border. Now, weapons of mass destruction, very good possibility. Nuclear, biological, chemical. And we also know that Hezbollah is training and working with the drug cartels to teach them how to detonate cell phone bombs. Okay? But we can't get Department of Homeland Security to establish an anti-terror task force on that border, despite the fact that Congresswoman Sue Myrick from North Carolina, January a year ago, asked for that to happen. She hasn't even gotten a response to the letter. So we need citizens like you to keep asking these hard questions of these legislators, keep calling, keep knocking on the doors, and the more of us that ask these questions, the more they're not going to think we're absolutely crazy. Because I used to think we were working so hard in Afghanistan and Iraq to keep the bad guys over there, until I started reading and learning that they're really here among us, and some in our own administration are working against us. Any quick questions? Andy.
Hey, when you were talking about Sharia finance, wasn't it Elaine Kagan who spearheaded that?
I've heard that said, and I'm not very sure. What I did not mention was that we've got billions and billions of dollars coming in from Saudi Arabia to fund Middle Eastern studies departments in all the universities, Cornell, Columbia, blah blah blah. She's not a friend among us, but regardless, we have to be aware of that. And right now, our banking people are totally blowing it off. Yeah.